Tampa is a major city that serves as the county seat of Hillsborough County, Florida, United States. It is on the west coast of Florida on Tampa Bay, near the Gulf of Mexico. Tampa is the largest city in the Tampa Bay area, with an estimated population of 399,700 in 2019. Tampa is the 48th most populous city in the U.S. and the third largest city in Florida after Miami and Jacksonville. The Bay's port is the largest in the state, near downtown's Channel District. Bayshore Boulevard runs along the bay and is east of the historic Hyde Park neighborhood. Today, Tampa is part of the metropolitan area most commonly referred to as the Tampa Bay Area. For U.S. Census purposes, Tampa is part of the Tampa-St. Petersburg-Clearwater, Florida Metropolitan Statistical Area. The four-county area is composed of roughly 3.1 million residents, making it the second largest metropolitan statistical area in the state and the fourth largest in the southeastern United States, behind Washington, D.C., Miami, and Atlanta. The Greater Tampa Bay Area has over 4 million residents and generally includes the Tampa and Sarasota metro areas. The city had a population of 335,709 at the 2010 census and an estimated population of 392,890 in 2018. As of 2018, Tampa's annual growth rate is 1.63%. When the pioneer community living near the U.S. Army outpost of Fort Brooke was incorporated in 1849, it was called Tampa Town, and the name was shortened to simply Tampa in 1855. The earliest instance of the name, Tampa, in the form, Tunpa, appears in the memoirs of Hernando de Escalante Fontaineda, who spent 17 years as a captive of the Calusa and traveled through much of peninsular Florida. He described Tunpa as an important Calusa town to the north of the Calusa domain, possibly under another chief. Archaeologist Gerald Millenich places the town of Tunpa at the mouth of Charlotte Harbor. The entrances to Tampa Bay and Charlotte Harbor are obscured by barrier islands, and their locations, and the names applied to them, were a source of confusion to explorers, surveyors and map makers from the 16th century through the 18th century. Bahia Tampa and Bahia de Espiritu Santo were each used, at one time or another, for the modern Tampa Bay and Charlotte Harbor. Tampa Bay was labeled Bahia de Espiritu Santo and the northeast arm named Hillsborough Bay. The name may have come from the Calusa language or possibly the Timucua language. Some scholars have compared Tampa to Itimpi, which means close to or nearby in the Creek language, but its meaning is not known. People from Tampa are generally known as Tampans or Tampanians. Local authorities consulted by Michael Cruz of the Tampa Bay Times suggest that Tampan was historically more common, while Tampanian became popular when the former term came to be seen as a potential insult. A mix of Cuban, Italian, and Spanish immigrants began arriving in the late 1800s to found and work in the new communities of Ybor City and West Tampa. By about 1900, these newcomers came to be known as Tampanos, a term that is still sometimes used to refer to their descendants living in the area, and potentially to all residents of Tampa regardless of their ethnic background. The shores of Tampa Bay have been inhabited for thousands of years. a variant of the Weeden Island culture developed in the area by about 2,000 years ago, with archaeological evidence suggesting that these residents relied on the sea for most of their resources. As a vast majority of inhabited sites have been found on or near the shoreline and there is little evidence of farming. At the time of European contact in the early 16th century, the safety harbor culture dominated the area, with indigenous peoples organized into 3 or 4 chiefdoms around the shores of the bay. Early Spanish explorers to visit the area interacted extensively with the Tocobaga, whose principal town was at the northern end of Old Tampa Bay near today's Safety Harbor in Pinellas County. While there is a substantial historical record of the Tocobaga, there is less surviving documentation describing the Pohoy chiefdom, which controlled the area near the mouth of the Hillsborough River near today's downtown Tampa. However, brief mentions by explorers along with surviving artifacts suggest that the Pohoy and other groups that once lived on Tampa Bay had very similar cultures and lifestyles as the better documented Tocobaga. Expeditions led by Panfilo de Narvaez and Hernando de Soto landed near Tampa, but neither conquistador stayed long. There is no natural gold or silver in Florida, and the native inhabitants repulsed Spanish attempts to establish a permanent settlement or convert them to Catholicism. The fighting resulted in a few deaths, but the many more deaths were caused by infectious diseases brought from Europe, which devastated the population of Native Americans across Florida and the entire Western Hemisphere. The indigenous cultures of the Tampa Bay area